Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, depending on where you are tuning from. You are welcome on Mamlakak Broadcast Network TV, affectionately called MBNK News, a platform designed to contrast the worldly fact with the kingdom truth, the original. I am your host for today, Veronique Lawson, for this discussion entitled Is America the Kingdom Nation? With podcaster Robert L. Kraft of our United Republic. Robert is trust administrator and international delegate for the Brotherhood in Tribulation of the American people and an avid advocate of maintaining the 1776 founding principle. Further information can be found on our unitedrepublic.com. Again, is America the kingdom nation? Whether I am speaking poetically or prophetically, yes, America is often described by some as the kingdom nation that people knew not, a land unknown to the ancient world, yet now central on the global stage. However, this is an interpretive, not an universal accepted. Today, we are going to be taking a closer look at that question. And I am certain during this discussion that Robert Kraft will go deep into it as he explained from different angles and the ramification. All the myth constructed through languages, power, media, some post-colonial theorists sees America as a continuation of an empire, dressed up as democracy. America, the foreseen kingdom of reason and experimental republic that ancient Enlightenment thinkers such as Locke, Montesquieu, and Rousseau, who shaped it, could not have predicted, symbolizing humanity progress towards freedom. Ladies and gentlemen, please help me welcome on the stage Robert L. Kraft. Thank you very much. Welcome, Robert. How are you again?
Hi, everybody.
How are you doing today?
I'm good. I'm with you from Midtown Manhattan. I am in New York City today,
Wow.
finishing up some stuff. So I've been here since yesterday. I came in on the New York Transit line last night, and I left Newark, Delaware yesterday.
My goodness.
So yeah, it's I'll be here. I'm either gonna try and leave later tonight or early in the morning tomorrow, depending on if I get everything done that I need to get done here. So back in New York.
Wow. As you hear, we are here now today to hear from you concerning this great question. Is America the kingdom nation? Please debunk it for us.
Well, I'm not going to debunk it. I don't listen. I'm not a pope. I'm not a king, and I've never been president of the United States. But I can tell you that there are documents that that literally say that America is a kingdom nation state, and that's just the way it is. So at least North America is. Give me 1 second.
Okay.
I don't know why someone's calling. No.
Okay. It's always, things happen. So we're gonna have a great discussion today with Robert concerning America, the kingdom nation. I think that what he's about to share, some people may say, "Wait a minute, I never thought of that." Well, I think if you do your research, you're going to find out that as he's going to be giving us. I don't want to go quickly too much into detail on that, but I have done some research and I found something very very deep, and I'm pretty sure he's going to do. Okay, are you back? Are you back?
Yeah, I am back. I am back.
Perfect.
Apparently, I'm in a hotel. I'm at the Hilton, and they wanted to make sure that my room, if I wanted my room turned or not. So perfect timing.
Great.
But I'm not any of these things, but I am educated enough, and I've educated myself enough to be able to read through a lot of these documents, especially philosophically, to understand how sponsorships work. And if you're military, if you're U.S. military, you understand what sponsorship means. We didn't know that so a lot of the things that they teach us when we're in the military is actually how the global system works. So, excuse me. So the when you are acknowledged and you are accepted and you are recognized, those things have very powerful concepts. And this explains a lot about why certain countries are not allowed to talk to other countries, or they won't even accept phone calls, or they won't talk to people. Or if you're contacting like a government agency or an agency and they're not responding for a couple reasons. But one of the main reasons they're not responding is either number one, they're not allowed to talk to you because you may be in an off jurisdiction. Number two, you're not recognized in their jurisdiction, or you are not qualified to be in their jurisdiction. So these are the three options. And one of the biggest things that we don't understand is, I hate to say the word chosen, but you have to have sponsorship to do a lot of the things that we're doing. And that sponsorship comes from being recognized, but you have to understand, and a lot of people have said it. They've said like, oh, every time that you do something, you make a contract. Well, that's kind of true, except who are you making that contract with? And is that individual entity or that individual organization, are they crediting you with a classification that could possibly in certain environments change your jurisdiction? And that is a part of how this works. And a lot of people don't understand that that we move in and out of these jurisdictions like all the time. You're not always in a certain jurisdiction. And if you don't have the proper credentials that are accepted, you actually can be moved. I hate that there was this video I watched the other day, and it was a movie that was recent. And the movie talked about, it's a chessboard, and a player can be moved. A king can move a player, or a player can move himself. And that's really how this stuff works. And these sponsorships, these freedom of association, these freedom to affiliate or to build alliances is a very powerful mechanism to our global structure, right down to the U.S. military and all of its branches are actually private membership organizations in the private sector for defense. So when you start thinking about all these trusts, and all these things are built on trusts, living trusts that are put in, and those trusts are beneficiaries. And we can talk a little bit more about that. I think it might be interesting. So yeah, it is very interesting when you start getting into, and then you get into words like kingdom. Well, kingdoms are in lands, and lands are in places, and places are near villages, and villages are where the king is, and the peasants, and and the public and the king's men. So, but really, all of those are just a jurisdiction. It's just a jurisdiction. It doesn't matter that you call it a king or you call it a queen or you say it implies a entitlement. The reality is, what is the entitlement that's been granted and who granted it is really how. Does that make sense?
Yeah, very much. Thank you. Thank you very much thank you very much already for giving us that highlight. I like the way you walk us through with military and that the jurisdiction always is not the same or are not the same. And now you're touching about the kingdom. My goodness, when you say that the kingdom are in lands and the land are in places and the places are in the villages. I'm kind of, what villages? Oh my gosh. And it's where the king or whoever lives. I said, wow.
So here's a great example. Here's a great example because this has come up a lot lately, and I've kind of mentioned it, but I haven't really gone into detail about it. So, if you read the Railway Act that I referenced in 1862, it actually talks about the Department of Interior was required to transfer the books to the railway company. Okay, so anything that fell under the railway company had basically autonomous control over. Okay, outside of the Department of Interior. That meant, now think about this. The Department of Interior is taking land and moving it to a railroad alliance. Make sense? Okay. So if the Department of Interior and everything in the Department of Interior is inside the United States, okay, inside the United States of America, then where does it go if all the books are transferred, all the paperwork, right? Because paperwork, right? It's all about pen's mightier than the sword. All the paperwork is given to a railroad alliance that's not inside the Department of Interior. Where does it go? Well, if it's not inside, where is it? It's outside. It's foreign. Okay? This was the door opener to all of our assets being moved offshore. And that's what we have to understand. We have to understand there are three parts to every division. There is a inside, there is a line or a barrier or a change, and then there is an outside. Right? Those are the three parts. So if there's a gate, right? If you pass through the gate, if the Department of Interior says, okay, we're not responsible for this anymore, and they move it through the gate, and it goes to an entity outside of the Department of Interior, then it's foreign. It's not inside the United States. Now, maybe with the United States, but it's not inside the United States. Or it could be outside the United States. In other words, it's foreign to the Department of Interior. Well, Department of Interior runs, what does the Department of Interior run? It runs the U.S. Park Service. If you've ever been to the Department of Interior Museum in D.C., it's really interesting. They run the Park Services there. That is the central jurisdiction. So you're looking at police, all police. Federal police are not with the Department of Interior. They are on they're special agents. So they're not with the Department of Interior, but they have a special order that comes from an air equity court, a military air equity court, or a either military or Secretary of Defense equity that gives them special equity agency credentials. So that's why FBI is called a special agent. That's why they're called special agents, because they're on a special order that means they're operating outside of their normal jurisdiction. So they have to be on special order. Special order. That's funny enough.
Wow.
So you have to pay attention to these words. You really do, because the words have meaning, and you have to pay attention to the order of the words. If you're in Manhattan, right? If you're in Manhattan and you're going around, and I'll give you an example today, right? To switch, because I had to switch I came in on the New York Transit, or the New Jersey Transit, which is the Western jurisdiction, right? So it's actually considered like the Northwest. So when I came in, I had to go all the way down to the finance center this morning. So I had to switch from Western jurisdiction to central jurisdiction. So the only way to switch from Western jurisdiction to central jurisdiction is you have to go to Times Square, and then you have to, because it's a square, right? It's squared, right? So it's squared. Now, remember, square is not quadrilateral. Square is the opposite of compass, which means it's not on a curve. It's a direct turn, right? It's a 90-degree versus a curve, right? Because it's a square, and that's what a square was. The square that we've been taught is called a quadrilateral. So to get from Western jurisdiction to central jurisdiction, I have to get to a square, and then I have to move to either another square or a place that does not have a street. Because if I get on a street, I'm back on a street. Sorry, I have been burping. So I had to go to Times Square, and then from Times Square, I had to, because I came in at the Union Penn last night on the Northwest. So I came in on the region. So I'm on the regional jurisdiction, because I didn't come in on the Amtrak. I came not in North America. I'm on the regional railroad. So then I had to go from Times Square down Broad Street. So I had to take the yellow line down Broad Street, and I had to get off at City Hall. Why do I get off City Hall? Because there's no street at City Hall. So you have to pay attention because all these jurisdictions are out there, and if you're trying to keep within a specific jurisdiction to accomplish a task, which is basically what I'm here for, I have to pay attention to the roads I'm on, what buses I take, what transit lines I use, because once the chain's broken, once the ribbon's broken, it's like an observation effect. Once you lose the observation, you have to go back and start again and rebuild it, right? So, I'm trying to stay within the jurisdictions that I understand how they work. So I had to go from Broadway down, and if you go to the R line or the W line, it comes down, it goes across, but it's Broadway, right? So I got off at City Hall. There's no street at City Hall, by the way, but they do happen to tell you that there are 150 connections that you can make from City Hall. How about that? 150 connections from City Hall, apparently. So, so then I had to go update our box down at Trinity Square, which is Exchange Alley, right next to Trinity Church. So I did that. And then I had to go back to City Hall because I can't get back on a street. I have to stay within that jurisdiction. And then I had to go north, right? Because I'm in Central. Now I've moved from the west to Central, right? And I'm trying to get back to Grand Central. So then I had to go north to New York University, because that's where the line breaks. I think it heads west after New York University. So then you got to get off, you got to go north. I had to take a bus up to 41st Street, and then and that put me on Madison Avenue. And then from Madison Avenue, I was able to go. So you got to pay attention when you're trying to build these ribbons to connect them, like these circuits. If that makes sense.
Wow. Thank you very much for that explanation. I'm going to ask you a question. Why do the City Hall in New York has 150 connections but no street attached to? So it wasn't made on purpose like that, so that people will be their right jurisdiction in the railroad's way?
It's not the railroad. It's the jury. So remember, we're talking about we're
Kingdom.
talking about a multi-layered system.
Yeah.
So when they say 150 connections, my assumption, because I kind of understand how it works, I would probably tell you that the major transit lines all over the country, and the major transit lines, especially in the cities all over North America, are coming out of New York City Hall.
Why so?
Because New York City is the origin, is the grand central town. It's Midtown, right? We're in Midtown. Right? We use these names. We use these names all the time. We don't really understand what they mean. If we say Brooklyn, or we say Manhattan, or we say Queens, we're talking about a borough. It's a habitat. It's a neighborhood, actually, technically. Okay? If we say downtown, or midtown, or uptown, what are we talking about? We're talking about a township. We're talking about the town of New York. Right? If you say city, right, you're saying the head of multiple townships in an area, or villages in an area, right? Because this is how our structure is. We have, if you go out, it's not as compressed in other places as it is here. And they've really done some injustice, because they've made a New York County and a New York City and a New York borough, and they've really, because that's the game. The game is to compress them, so then you don't really know where you are, and that they're all supposed to be separated. And that's one of the problems that we're trying to sort out, is we have to get these things divided so that we know, like, you want to know where you are when you're somewhere, when you're in a place, right? And you want to know if you're in a higher jurisdiction or you're in a lower jurisdiction. And that's one of our problems basically everywhere. So we're trying to get that sorted out. But right now it's all compressed. But it all has to do with what laws apply in those places.
Beautiful. Thank you very much for the answer. I don't know whether I'm going to be moving a little bit out of the topic, but I'm still eager to really know about how come that America became, or the kingdom. But prior to that, in one of your videos, I think this week or last week, you mentioned that Andrew Jackson, which I believe was a president, was the first pope.
Listen, that is said with all sarcasm. That is said with all sarcasm, by the way, just so you know. When I say it, it is sarcastic.
Okay.
So it is not an appreciation in any way.
Okay. It was kind of, what a minute. Yeah. Andrew Jackson was the first pope over there.
He was the first pope. If you go back to the Treaty of Sessions, 1819, I think it was ratified in now, when I say Treaty of Sessions, do not pull your chat GPT and try going to the Treaty of Sessions. That's something else we should probably talk about right now. So I got into a conversation recently about the Articles of Confederation. And it was funny, and this was my test. I asked, or actually a friend of mine did, because we were discussing it, and I said, well, go to, I think it's Article 12 of the Articles of Confederation, and read what it says. And he pulled up ChatGPT and asked ChatGPT why Canada was referenced in the Articles of Confederation. And ChatGPT told him that Canada is not in the Articles of Confederation. And then I pulled up a copy of the Articles of Confederation, and it was like Article 12, talked about Canada. So be careful with ChatGPT. You should really be going back and trying to find the real documents, the real books, and reading them. reading those documents, researching archives, stuff like that. Another website that I found that's actually really good is Wikimedia versus Wikipedia. Wikimedia has a common area, and it is more based on what is it? It's a global community structure versus a Britannic encyclopedia structure. So check out Wikimedia. It's been an interesting experience messing with that. But with that said, now let's go to the part that you asked. If you look up Florida territorial laws, you'll find this book. It's on the treaty of. It has the origin documents for the origin of Florida. Technically, it was the origin of West Florida. West Florida and East Florida were actually two separate divisions of a country, technically. I don't know. Give me 1 second. Sorry. So West Florida and East Florida were actually two separate divisions of a country. West Florida, according to the Treaty of Sessions, Pensacola City is the founding city of West Florida. West Florida is what was acknowledged in the Treaty of Sessions. So if you see everything as West Florida, okay. So in that, because the Pope signed it and King Ferdinand signed it of Spain, and the United States President James Monroe signed it, it essentially created a kingdom nation state for which Andrew Jackson was put in charge. And Andrew Jacksonville, started issuing ordinances out of it. So when you say Northwest Ordinance, the only one that can issue an ordinance is an ordained individual. That means they have to come from a religious presence. So that's where ordinances come from. Now, a bunch of people are going to say, well, my county issues ordinances all the time. And I'm going to tell you that you are correct. And that is one of the problems that we have found out. We actually found out exactly where the actual town where civil marriages originated. And what happened was that people did not want to go through the process of being you had to go and they used to tell you that you had to go and get you had to have a blood test and all this other stuff to get married to make sure it wasn't incest. Well, that's not exactly true. If you go back 200 years, you were actually required to build a trust for your marriage, and that's where the endowments came from. The endowments were actually the seed for the trust when the marriage happened, and that was what built the marriage trust, the actual law trust that was attached to the church, whatever church or religion you were attached to. Your church was technically your intercessor. If you go to Isaiah 59, it says we don't have an equity cannot return, for we don't have an intercessor. So the church was the intercessor, and the intercessor, according to banking law, is the beneficiary. So the individual like biped is not, or that biped relationship is not the beneficiary. It's never the beneficiary. The administrative organization that was granted guardianship over the marriage is supposed to be the beneficiary when it comes to the treasury or when it comes to the church. And that's how the system's set up. That's why if you go into, if you start going through mortgages, you'll notice that you're given a deed but you're not given a title. You're given title insurance. You get a title search. And that's why in your mortgage, you are the borrower. You are not the beneficiary. The bank is actually acting as your administrative church because you have a civil relationship. You do not have a equitable relationship with the U.S. government.
Wow. Are we gonna thank you very much, Robert? Thank you. Are we gonna get rid of all that layers of governments, such as the bank, for the mortgages and all of the other stuff that they have stolen away from the people, not only in America, but when we talk about birth certificate and how much they own us? So I don't know whether you want to go down that road in this discussion, but as I see, it's building just close to.
Well, they are. They're merging. If you can tell, they're merging together.
Yes.
Because we're getting closer and it's getting tighter, we are merging together. Can I tell you that the system's going to go away? The system is not going away. Okay, and the system is actually not. Now, I'm not going to tell you that there's not nefarious individuals who will have to be dealt with, and that's part of this whole thing with federal. They're calling it. It's funny because they're calling it federalizing Washington, D.C. They're not federalizing Washington, D.C. They are reorganizing the structure of power in Washington, D.C. Washington, D.C. has been for 60 years, has been under an Indian Universal Commercial Code occupation through Britain since the War of 1812. Okay? So the Federation, the Federated States of Micronesia, which their legislative body, their legislative private membership organization, right, because all private, is called the World Health Organization. Okay? That's whose their legislature is. So DC was occupied by a foreign federation originating out of India through Britain. Okay? For the last at least 60 years. But technically, we've been occupied by the British government or the British aristocracy and Spain for the last, all the way back to 1814. So it's been an occupation. So that is what's being, quote unquote, federalized, is that it's not the Indian Federation or the Federated States of Micronesia that is there. It is the United States National Federation, the Federalist Papers Federation, the real federation, the original federation. So what's happening is you're having a transfer of power because the federal government is the enforcement mechanism under the National Guard Army, which is the way it's supposed to be.
Beautiful.
The police departments police the inhabitants. The National Guard polices the police department in the protection of the inhabitants.
Wow. Beautiful. You just took that question out of my mouth, because that was my next question to you about the federalization of the Washington, D.C. that took place actually this week. I really wanted you to explain, but you already done that. And
now that'll spread. That should spread to every city, because so Washington is a mirror image of how the law is working inside the United States. I'll give you a key, something I just figured out. So So if you look at the White House, if you're looking at the White House, you pull up Google Earth, whatever, you look at the White House has the West Wing, which is the executive wing, which is the United States wing that's attached to Congress. That is the commercial trade side. All right. Then it has the east side, right? You have the east. The east is where the Treasury building is. The East Wing is really not being used the way it's supposed to right now because the Marine Corps is not there. When the Marine Corps is there and the Army is back, it'll be different. But for now, if you look above that, if you look to the two circles that go above it, the one to the left, I forgot what it is. The other one's Logan Circle. But if you look at the original names, the one on the left is Pacific, and the one on the right is Iowa. Well, the reason it's Iowa is because Iowa is where all the federal university land grants come out of after the railroad that federalized all the universities and basically took away the university territorial governments or the presidents of the territory. So that came from Iowa. So that's there. But that's supposed to be the Union. So it's going to be the Union Circle and the Pacific Circle out front, right across Lafayette Square. When you go south, you enter the President's Park, right? And that's called the South Lawn. All right. But really, that's not supposed to be the South. The South is supposed to be below that. And there's this circle at the bottom called the ellipse. Well, if you look at the ellipse, if you've ever been there, if you zoom in, there's this granite stone that sticks up. That granite stone is called the zero line, which means that's the center line, zero, right? That's zeros, the whole thing. North, south, east, and west is zeroed, right? If you ever look on that stone, it actually has one side of it says the highways, one side of it says commerce, one side of it says the north, one side of it says the south, right? That's what it says on that stone. That circle that's below, if you look off to the left, there are 3 buildings. Those 3 buildings represent the 3 law jurisdictions that we don't have right now, which is international law, global law, and what's the other one? International, global, international is human rights, global is defense.
Continental
law. Yep,
Continental.
that's it. Okay, so if you look at that circle, right, this is above Washington Monument, south of the White House, right? You have the South Lawn here. Then you have this little zero stone, and then you have this big circle that calls it an ellipse. Well, that is not an ellipse, okay? Because ellipses are not circle. So if you look at the 3 buildings, the building all the way to the south at 17th and Constitution Boulevard, that is the Organization of American States. That is international human rights law. So that would be at the bottom of the ellipse, right? If you look at the next building, which would be in the middle of the quote-unquote ellipse, right across the street, that building is the Continental Hall, which is your continental jurisdiction, right? And then the top building is your global jurisdiction, which is the Red Cross building. So if you look to the right, there's like this dirt road that comes out and it kind of splits in this weird way. That's telling you like these are not connected. They don't exist. They're supposed to merge here. They're supposed to have something here. Something's missing. What's missing are the 3 law jurisdictions that we all want. We want international law, we want continental law, we want global law inside the United States. Make sense?
Yes,
so
very much.
DC is a representation of how our law systems are working, are functioning. So, and it's always representing so that it can always tell the people where they are. And what it's telling us is this whole circle that's yours doesn't exist.
So how can we get that one back?
Well, that's what we're working on, is trying to get these jurisdictions open by understanding that international laws, human rights, continental law is the continent, North American continent, which is where the Amtrak is, and global law is where the transit regional lines are, and trying to get those back and connected.
Wow.
So the electric system and the water system is so the Marine. I think the Marine Corps has the electric lines, and Army has water, the water waste treatment, water plants, stuff like that. I'm pretty sure that's how it's set up. So those two jurisdictions, like that's their jurisdiction. So when we're back online, they will have jurisdiction over those things.
Wow, beautiful. Thank you very much, Robert. Can you please explain how do India and Russia plays in this maritime jurisdiction or implementation? As I think it's tomorrow, President Trump is going to be meeting, has a meeting in Alaska. So
yeah, with
anything to do with?
Yes, and India is supposed to be there. If you look through, it's very subtle in their comment, but they're saying that India is supposed to be there. My opinion, well, it has to happen in Alaska. For one, Alaska is the mutual agreement place for Russia and America, going back to the Monroe Doctrine of 1828. Russia is mentioned in the Monroe Doctrine in 1828. Also because we purchased Alaska from Russia. I think we purchased Alaska technically from the Russian American Corporation or the Russian monarchy before the Russian American Corporation was shut down. So what I think is happening, and this is my opinion, is that they are going there to actually transfer the federal, what we call the countersign. We have a countersign on the other side of the earth usually. Well, with everything, every trust has to have a countersign, has to have a trustee. So they're going to transfer our countersign trustee to Russia from India. And really it's because of the relationship of India to the maritime law, to the Federated States, the World Health Organization. We are leaving the World Health Organization. We are leaving. We're probably going to be leaving the United Nations, but we are leaving that jurisdiction, and we are moving into the Northern Hemisphere as far as our federal government, and we have to have a global countersign. Our global countersign would be Russia, because Russia has a federation. You have to have a federation in order to have a countersign for a federation. That's how it works.
Thank you. So, in other words, what President Trump is doing actually now is kind of bringing back the kingdom, the American kingdom, in quote unquote, in terms of the way the government have to be seen or maybe perceived, or with the railway plays a lot in this. Is that
technically right now, this is the frame out of our nation. So we say America is a nation. We are framing back. This is the frame out for our nation that was founded under the Declaration of Independence and the Articles of Federation that created the Constitution. Technically, we are the framing that they're putting in is actually Article 3 and Article 2 of the Constitution. So we are they're still on the side of the nation, right? Because remember, it's a people's kingdom nation. So the inhabitants are not organized to the point of being able to facilitate building out the infrastructure for a aristocratic republic, or a people's aristocratic republic. So we still have to work on that. We're still trying to get connections made, but yes, we are moving that direction. This is one of the things that has to happen, is we have to get away from the British Federation federal government, and we have to get away from them.
Beautiful.
Because they owe us $37 trillion in prepaid labor that they're going to have to figure out how to pay their bills. So that's another problem they're going to have.
I can't wait to get that money back into America. Thank you very much. And I'm pretty sure that President Trump is going to screw them perfectly to get that money back here.
You know, I think at this point, you know, the one thing about America that's different, and it's always been different, you know, even though we've been under occupation, even though our military forces have been offshored under foreign rule for years and years and years, the American people have no interest in occupying other people's lands. Like, the American people love America. They don't want to own South America. They don't want to own Canada. They have no intentions of conquering anybody else's country or anybody else's nation to occupy. We get sent there under military alliances, but we always return home. And I think that's something that's going to be different entering this new reorganization of powers, is because the American people do not have that conquer and subjugate mentality. We just don't have it. We've never had it. So most of the wars we went and fought, we went because we were under orders, and because that's just the way it goes. But there was never an intent to occupy and conquer.
The intention was always freedom. Thank you very much.
Well,
I believe the intention was always freedom.
Yeah, I think when you get down to, you know, the actual units and their commands, that is the intent. I think when you get anywhere near Congress, that intent is an exploitation.
Indeed. Thank you very much. You spoke earlier about aristocracy. Where did that type of government comes from? You want to explain on that?
Well, I mean, you know, aristocracy, you know, if you read the Republic, Plato's Republic, you know, Plato's Republic kind of breaks it down into a monarchy, an aristocracy, and a timocracy is the term they use, and then a tyranny. And obviously, you know, we've developed a republic. Well, partially we have kind of a republic, but you know, you have to know the difference and at the end of Plato's Republic, you know, Plato said that there is supposed to be, if you're sticking to the 10 books of the Republic, we are supposed to have a what's called a philosopher king. That is the term that he used, but you have to remember that when you read through Plato's dialogues, the King Archon was the Archon name was not a named king. Archon was actually a representative king. In other words, all the kings were actually the Archon kings. Just depended on who was filling the seat or the position. But they were always called King Archon. It was always the same name. So, you know, I think with that, people have to understand that it's most individuals do not operate on their own. They have, even Jesus had the apostles, right? So when you take an apostle council, or what we call a cabinet, and you put them together, and that individual who's, has the decision-making power, has, people to bounce ideas off of before they make a decision, I think in any shape or form that technically would be an aristocracy. So nobody really rules alone in our social structures. There's always influences. So there's no real true way to get to a monarchy, because that individual's never actually totally alone. So that, and Plato kind of goes to the same thing. If you get to aristocracy, basically, if you were to take a cabinet with a decision maker, with a mechanism of force, you would technically have an aristocracy, or an oligarchy. An oligarchy is more, we all take a vote and we're going to go the way that the voting goes. More like what the United Nations would be. The United Nations would technically be more like an oligarchy. And then you have, a republic. Well, the republic is basically to bind the public, or to restrain the public, because the public is mostly uneducated, and they're not any interested in learning the things that they need to learn to actually participate in the political, social, civic structure. So that's really what the republic is built on. And then, of course, you have tyranny, where one or a group get together and they try to cede all power to the center of themselves, and then rule as they are the height of intelligence, and they know more than everybody else, and then they justify it through entitlements or certifications, and basically they discredit anyone that doesn't go along, and lead you to democracy. And they call it democracy, but it's not a democracy. It's actually just an oligarchy. They sell democracy as everyone has a vote, but then the votes are manipulated and there's no possible way to track them. So you end up with an oligarchy anyways, which is basically the political parties and what we call U.S. voters.
I like that. Thank you very much. U.S. soldier. I like that one. Basically, what you just shared now, I really want to highlight one point you said about the Plato Republic. And the Plato Republic, even when you read in his books, is actually colorate a little bit of how the kingdom function. As you said, the Archon king were always people who represented. So they were never by themselves. So, but they always like to form like a cabinet and make sure that they have a consensus. But the Archon will come out and then he will voice the public opinion. So I believe that America has been there, but our founder father, that was their intention, even to continue this unknown kingdom to the public eyes. I don't know whether we will come back really through that fact, that where people will understand that each one of us are sovereign in the land.
Well, I think that the worthy, those tapped to be worthy, will end up with civil liberties, and they will end up with those rights and those abilities. Those who are not are, and I'll use the term community restrained facilities is probably the best term. They'll be remanded to community restrained facilities. They're not the days of tolerance and let me be who I am while people go and just piss and crap all over everybody else and ruin their public reputation and all this stuff, like that's over. Like that stuff's over. It's not gonna be tolerated anymore. So these people will be identified, and they're being identified. One of the giant jokes that I've found is they talk about the dark web, right? I've never been on the dark web. I don't even know how to get there. I have no idea how to get there. Not at all, right? So but I know of the dark web. And they're like, well, you can't be tracked. And I'm like, you people are out of your mind. You are being tracked. You are just too dumb to realize who's tracking you. And it's not who you want to track you. So it's kind of like that. It's kind of like, well, I thought that I was a U.S. citizen, and I thought that I had like rights. You don't have any rights as a U.S. citizen. And if you haven't figured that out, you can go ahead and read the Bill of Rights and show me the last time you actually saw a 7th Amendment trial by jury. Anywhere. I don't know of anyone ever that's had a 7th Amendment trial by jury to declare a fact at law. So that entire Bill of Rights is not operating. So, and most of it's because we are not properly formed up. We do not have our proper religious established institutions for law in place that can act as our intercessors. And a lot of that stuff comes from living trusts and stuff like that have to be put in that have just been neglected for 100 years, 200 years. And we don't know how to do this stuff. So that's going to have to be done for us. And it's going to have to be done with the assistance of the U.S. military and the U.S. Marine Corps and the U.S. Army and Air Force and Space Force, because until we have like the land is worked and prepped, you can't plant the seeds. So we got to prep the land first. Then you plant the seeds, then you facilitate germination, and that's going to take a period of time. So most people, if I had to guess, 70% of the people inside North America will end up in a community restrained facility or colony. You can call it a colony if you want. But their liberty, what they believed was liberty, will be restrained because we just can't have it. And that's one of the things that Trump's doing with like, he's like, we're moving the homeless out. Like you're not supposed to be in the nation's capital. You're not supposed to be in the nation's capital. That is the place of business, international business and trade. That is what keeps the economy working. And that's what keeps our mechanism of national defense working. You're not supposed to be homeless in the nation's capital, period. It was never like that before. You weren't even allowed in unless you were sponsored by a congressman to go work there. They had like open cafeterias in the buildings and everything because you were there like on assignment. You would like graduate high school and go work for your congressman, your senator or something in DC. I met this lady one time who was like 90 years old, and she did it. She had actually met Eisenhower. And back in the Eisenhower days, that's how it was. She went to work for her state's congressman, and she was working in the Eisenhower building during the World War II. And that's how it was. She said they took a trolley everywhere. There were no cars, and there were cafeterias in every building. And it was a place. It was a national campus to work.
Beautiful. Wow.
That's like what we're going back to. So probably 70% of the nation is going to be under some type of community restraint mechanism.
Wow. Thank you. Thank you very much, Robert. Is what you say about activation of jurisdiction, international, continental, global, basic service being nationalized for security with the U.S. Army?
Yeah, it's probably going to be under global jurisdiction. And then inside the global jurisdiction will be the international jurisdiction, because it's not like these people won't have rights. Where they are in the colony area or whatever their radius is that they're set, they'll have all their human rights, all their stuff. They just won't. There are certain things that'll be restrained unless they get authorization.
Thank you. And did you think that people are going to boycott that, or they're going to try to explain to them really what they are doing?
I think at some point, and I think right now they can't, because they're still in the process of like getting everything switched over. But at some point they're going to have to explain to them that like this is how things were. Like people, right now people are talking about the National Guard being in DC, and they're like, you're releasing the National Guard on your people. And I'm like, I have two words for you guys: whiskey rebellion. Like, you guys need to pay attention. Washington literally turned the National Guard militia loose on citizens, on inhabitants. They weren't citizens, they were inhabitants. But in reality, like that's the National Guard. That's what they're for, right? So that's ridiculous in itself. But yeah, at some point they're gonna have to tell them and tell the public, like, yes, you've been told that you're a U.S. citizen. Yes, you've been told, even though the Constitution never allowed for the U.S. to have citizens, there's nothing in there about U.S. citizens. It says you have to be a citizen. It does not say that they have the power to make citizens. It says they have the power to naturalize. That's all it says. So they're going to have to be explained that U.S. citizenship is not American citizenship, and American citizenship is a duty to the nation. And U.S. citizenship, you can be born a U.S. citizen, but that just makes you the public. That's just the citizenship. If you leave the United States, like, someone can say you're a U.S. citizen so that our Department of State can claim you as one of our public. But that's not, it doesn't mean what people think it means. And people mistake using America and the United States regularly. They don't understand that these are two different countries you're talking about, two different sets of laws. I mean, the beginning of the Constitution says, "We the people of the United States." Well, wait a minute. We the people of means we, like, we the people of this thing, this separate thing called the United States. That's right. Because the people made the United States.
Exactly.
So if you say United States citizen, we the people of the United States, that means you say United States citizen, that means it's a different than the people. That's not the same thing. Because it's of, means not a part of. Like, I am of Florida. I came from Florida. I'm not Florida. So, and that's the problem with language. If you're not paying attention, and if you put it backwards, one of the things I think we're going to find very quickly, you're going to start seeing colleges' names change. Like, well, they have New York University, right? But New York University is the way it's properly supposed to be written. When you say University of Florida, that means that it's a university not attached to Florida. It's supposed to be Florida University. So you're going to, like, because a lot of these words, especially when you go back to the Constitution, a lot of these words are written algorithmically, like mathematically. So if you say one thing before another, you're actually changing the entire structure of what those two words mean.
Exactly. Well, especially in law.
Yes. Well, that's why, because in law, it is algorithmic. It is mathematical.
Wow. Beautiful. We are running out of time with all the explanation you're giving us today. Is America the Kingdom Nation, Robert? It's always a pleasure having you and sharing some insightful and important development on the movement, on the changing, whether it be the economic one, but most probably the governmental part. That I like because that is your area which you really you just put them into perspective, into the way that everyone really wanted to understand where they are and what is next. And
Yeah.
I so much appreciate that one.
If I had to guess, I would tell you that right now, where we are is the Congress, the foreign Congress or the corporate Congress that was in place has been evicted. Those seats have not been filled, and basically the members of Congress are tenants awaiting eviction, waiting their physical removal from the facility. And the only two people that are in the Capitol building are actually the President of the United States when he's acting as the executive, and JD Vance and whoever they have tapped or sponsored to assist them in their current mission. And something else, one last thing I want to say before we get done. Pay attention to Donald Trump. It appears that his ties are tagged are connected to whatever jurisdiction he's in at the time. And pay attention when he says the word executive order, or like the other day, I don't know if anybody saw, he was signing proclamations and he was making envoys. When you say proclamation and you say envoy, that is, he is operating as the magi king. Like he is operating in the land of America. Okay, because proclamations come from, it is therefore proclaimed. That is the king role, or the Article 2 President of the United States of America, Commander in Chief role. So pay attention when he says that, because if he says executive order, he's operating a commerce. If he says proclamation, if you hear proclamation or envoy, those are terms for like Pharaoh sending an envoy to Israel, or Solomon. So pay attention, because those words mean very different things. Just like metropolitan versus in the District of America versus District of Columbia, like those are two different, completely different jurisdictional places.
Wow, my goodness, that's I always notice that President Trump, he talks a lot with comms or optics, but that detail that you just share now, I think from this day on, what I'm going to read now, when I even read all what he said, I said, okay, what is it? Okay, this means that, because I try to walk down the rabbit hole to find out all the comms and all the optics in his delivery, whether press conference or even when he writes something on True Social. A comment that comes down from that, I would say some people are still not seeing what he really means, and deliberately sometimes he does a big mistake or put all in capital letters. I say this is, he's actually telling the people that something is changing here.
Yep.
And I'm so glad that you brought it out.
Right. And a lot of times, like, think of it like a void. Like if something's not there, then it just defaults down to whatever it is. So when something's put in place, if it's in a higher level, but it's on the same column, then that column, that whatever was there, just stepped up to a new row. So even though you may not think that it attaches to one thing, if it's on that column and it was foreign, and now it's jumped up to defense, like it can jump 3 columns at once, because that's where it is. So make sure, don't jump to conclusions. A lot of this stuff is, and it appears that he's online with the way the law works, the way the law is supposed to work. He's operating where he should be. as far as I can tell. There's some things I'm like, I don't know. But for the most part, he is right. If you were to go back and read the events that transpired after the founding of the nation with Adams and Jefferson and Washington, he is falling in line with where they were, well, the things that they were doing after the founding of the nation. So he is operating back there where he should be.
Indeed, indeed, indeed. That's so true, because the other day, actually, even in the White House, he tried to make sure the camera was fixing on Washington. Because
Yes,
he was actually giving the come to the people that we went back to what Washington says.
Correct, because it's the city of Washington in the District of America, which is the state of DC. Okay, which is the state of the District of Columbia. So Washington, DA is the city, DC is the state. And those are two, and metropolitan is in the city, which is in DA, not in DC. And right, because it's a nation state. The nation state. The cities are in the nation. The state is in the District of Columbia. So you got to, and that's why you got to pay attention, because when he comes out, he's coming out in different roles, and you don't know what role, because we don't have all those systems divided. So they're all compressed on each other, and the seat cannot be abandoned. The seat for captain cannot be abandoned. So it has to fall to where it goes. So you got to pay attention to that stuff too. But yeah, it is interesting to see, and he is playing numerous roles. And listen, if it was me, I would probably have like multiple teams. Like I would be like, okay, you guys are defense, and you guys are the administrator, and you guys are commerce, right? And then, okay, what's this? Okay, we're doing this. Oh, it's executive order. Okay, because now we're doing this. Because now it's got to come from this direction, and it can't come from this other direction over here. So that's a big part of it, because these law jurisdictions, they don't disintegrate, they just collapse onto another one.
Thank you. Beautiful. Any final remark before we wrap up the show today, Robert?
No.
By the way, where people can find your work. I know you have a Telegram channel, and I don't know whether you still have your number or not. But
I got so beat up on all of them. I'm on TikTok, but I don't really make any videos. My Telegram channel is like the one place that I go where I put content out, and then our website, oureunitedrepublic.com. And you can find us there. If you want to support the mission, you can make a donation. You can buy shares that are private, individual, to help finish this. A lot of this stuff, I can't say enough. We've been supported quite a bit until we can get this mechanism. It looks like things are going to switch here real quick as far as funding, because we're getting the rest of our stuff set up with Treasury. So hopefully that happens quickly. And we appreciate the support. We're trying to put out quality content and try to get people to see the content I do put out is more to show people that there is a road, but the road has to be done through the law, and it has to be done by people who can figure it out. And there is no road map. We're building the road map. So, but we appreciate it, and thanks for the support.
Thank you very much for that final remark, Robert. And it's indeed that you are hard working in implementing all of that for we the people, so that we will be a beneficiary of that. And I'm so much appreciative that we have a privilege to know you, and then so you could come on the show and explain even what you're doing and what is happening in the on the, how do you call it, backstage. So please remain a little bit on the backstage as I
Yeah.
conclude this my part, and then we wrap up that one. America is the kingdom nation. If you didn't know that, now from today onward, you know that America is truly a kingdom nation, because America, through its story, role is still unfolding in the eyes of many people. A land that has been misunderstood or intentionally forgotten by those who came to dominate it. The real unknown kingdom is the one buried under colonial conquest. As you hear it today, how even Washington, D.C. was still under the, the, the British and also the Indian. The spiritual and ethical system of a native people, that true, is still largely not known by the mainstream society. And we are here to hone it. From biblical prophecy viewpoint, America is a gentle superpower unknown to ancient prophet, possibly part of the end time destiny. And I'm glad to be part of it. And I hope that you are also part of it, and so that we are going to be, as the light said, the light on the top. The light on the top. So you take your light and you put it on the top, and we're going to light this world. So this is the end of the show today. America is the kingdom nation. And I thank you very much for the privilege of your time. Please follow us on our various platforms that you can come up on the screen. And then that is it. Signing off. Thank you and bye-bye.